Hey, everybody, it's Craig Syracuse of Walk in Faith. I'm so happy to be able to sit with my friend Greg Masaitis, who runs a high-end real estate firm and company with Keller Williams all over in Long Island. So, Greg, I know I screwed up the title a little bit, but if you could explain to some of the viewers exactly what you do, and we can get started.
Yeah, absolutely, Craig. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. So I run a real estate team out of Keller Williams. It's the Masaitis team out of Keller Williams. I also own my office here in Massapequa as well. So I'm considered what you call the operating principal there.
Very good. And now I'm really excited about, sitting down with you. I know we spoke yesterday on the phone. First of all, it's great to see you, of course. But also, a lot of people have concerns now. And I'm just going to go over a few of them and then we can go through them. And this actually might take, I think, 2 sessions because there's a lot that we need to discuss. So the first thing, and we can go in any order, is what is the current market now currently? I mean, is this a good time? Number one, I want to go over, is this a good time to be selling your home, putting your house on the market? Is it also a good time to be refinancing? One of the reasons, and we'll go into detail, is that, a lot of the assets, stocks, and bonds, everything is down. So when you're showing your overall portfolio, it's a lot less. Is this a good time? Is the interest rates going to go up and down? What's the future of showing homes and putting, houses on the market in terms of having people come to the house? So these are some of the topics I wanted to discuss with you. So it's up to you, Greg. What's the first thing you would like to discuss? Maybe we can talk about, some of your clients and are you putting some of the everything on hold? How are you operating your business during this pandemic?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those are all really, really great questions. And I know consumers are out there just, want some advice on these things. And, things are changing, honestly, day by day. Us as real estate agents, we're guided by NYSAR, which is the New York State Association of Realtors, and the Department of State. So we have to follow certain guidelines. And those guidelines are changing, I want to say, every 3 days. We're constantly getting updates on what to restrict and what we're allowed, what we're allowed not to do. So, at this point, I want to say that pretty much the real estate industry is shut down probably about 80%.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying that we cannot sell a home, get a home under contract. There are essential pieces to a real estate transaction when it comes to contract to a close or even showings, which I'm going to go over that stuff with you. But you got to understand, with as far as putting a deal together, let's start with showings. Showings are very, very challenging right now because of what we're in. There are people who are scared, number one, and we're not allowed to do showings as traditionally as we have been doing in the past.
Wow.
We do allow virtual showings though. So we're allowed to orchestrate a virtual showing using technology. Sometimes like on this call right now, we're using Zoom or any other kind of program from your phone, FaceTime, whatever it is. And we're doing that just this way we can kind of put those deals together and make people feel comfortable. But as far as the traditional showings, that is done right now. As far as the essential parts to the transaction, like closings, for instance, that's considered essential. So if you're already under contract, things are going forward. So stuff that we've had on the contract from months ago are closing. Just to keep you and the consumer informed. Average contract to close typically is about 90 days anyway. So we have contracts that were done 3 months ago and put together are closing now. So that stuff is still going on. There is, reel me in if I'm jumping around, but I want to make sure that I hit every single topic on this.
Yeah, no, I want to go back. I think this is great. So let's just say now, I was in the process of closing. Now, have you seen people pull out? Because now if I'm purchasing another house now, obviously the kids are home, maybe I lost my job. I mean, so many things have changed in the past couple of months. Are there any clauses or ways to get out of a contract or to say, before I move into this house, how do I know the family didn't have the virus, or is there processes that need to be put in place in terms of cleaning the house or moving companies? I mean, there's so many other things that have been stopped, so I understand the 90 days and the title and all that and the closing, but what about everything else that's going on? Has that affected the buyers or the sellers to say, hey, I don't want to go forward with this anymore?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different tiers to that. Once this pandemic started, they put an addendum to contracts, a coronavirus addendum to contracts, where pretty much it said to the client, as long as this was an agreement, you could say, "Hey, listen, I don't want to do this deal at all." But this addendum was put into place that if the buyer was directly impacted from coronavirus, meaning that I lost my job to coronavirus, not, hey, listen, I decided to invest 100,000 in the stock market and I lost half of it. It had to be directly affected. There's going to be that clause that's in there which will allow that consumer actually to pull out of that contract. So that was an addendum that was put in place when this started. So if you're in that situation, yes. But if you were in a contract beforehand, it all depends on how that contract reads. There could be, listen, sometimes there's contingencies in contracts saying that it's contingent upon the buyer getting a mortgage. So let's just say during this process now you lost your job. That could be arguable on pulling out of a contract. And you also have to deal with the bank understanding that, hey, am I willing to lend at this point? Am I willing to lend the money to somebody who doesn't have a job? Even though I feel, and I'm sure you do too, this is a short-term unemployment crisis that we're in.
Yes.
I feel that. So it depends on the bank and how they feel about things. I can't speak for one or the other, but it's going to be situation to situation.
So now, okay, so you said that you do have some closings. In terms of people that were interested in selling their homes, what is the process like now? Are they still, I mean, would you advise someone to put the house on the market now? Would you tell them to hold back? What would be your advice?
That's going to be situation to situation. It depends if this house is vacant or not. If it's going to be vacant, it's going to be a little easier to do virtual showings. Now you have a house that everybody's in different, I would never want to tell somebody who was an old person to say, hey, listen, we can orchestrate a showing through the NYSAR guidelines, which are very, very strict, by the way, and potentially get sick. That's really something that I wouldn't want to hang my hat on or recommend to somebody else. Also, you got to understand the consumer is very scared right now. And the agents are also abiding by the guidelines on showing. So even if you have listings right now, showings are very, very minimal, if any at all, because of those situations that we're in.
Wow. Has the interest rates dropped at all, during this pandemic? And what do you think in terms of the future? Do you think let's say in 2 months, life gets back to the new normal and now you have an abundance of homes. Do you think the market will be affected? Will houses drop? Will they increase? Are people going to, want to move to the suburbs because of just the amount of people that were living, in proximity in the inner city? I mean, are things going to change at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, anybody that understands anything with the stock market and mortgage, and understand how the process and how all that stuff works, we're following the 10-year Treasury note. The 10-year Treasury note, if you understand this, it's down as low as it's probably, I don't want to say for sure it's as low as it's ever been, but it is so low that it's almost free to borrow money. But the thing is this, the banks, they have to have a conduit to where they borrow the money from, right? So what if they're going to go through Goldman Sachs and go to the stock market? That's where your money comes from, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, right? So it's the amount of money. Even though the yield spread is down low, it doesn't equate to where the rate should be, because there's nothing now. Like I looked up an APR just before we got on the call. Their rate was at 3.5%, but the APR was 4.5%. So the annual percentage rate is what the bank is willing to sell the loan for. If you go and sell something for 3%, there's no money in it. So it's good. There's going to be an adjustment. It's just the economy needs to stimulate it. And I feel that as it goes on, and I'm taking this advice from, I have multiple lenders that I deal with, that I recommend to my clients, and I get this information, and each one of them are consistent with this. Mm-hmm. Every one of them are consistent that when things kind of go back into place and businesses back into place, you're going to see the rates come down. And that's going to be the time. That's going to be the time to refinance, or if you're in a new home purchase position, it's going to be a great time.
So just, I mean, you mentioned a lot of terms. So just if someone is purchasing a house now or refinancing, what are the interest rates? And you said that they potentially might drop. What would they drop to? Is it 30-year fixed? If you can explain, in case somebody's out there that doesn't fully understand the way the APR works.
Okay, for a short period of time before all this really went full throttle for the pandemic, rates were below 3%. They were
That's 30 years?
Yeah, 30 years. 30-year fixed. Conventional jumbos were a little bit more because you're borrowing more money. Even myself, I said, you know what, I'm going to refinance my house right now because I'm only in my house for a year and a half, and it makes sense because of my amortization schedule. So I'm going to refi my house. So I called one of my lenders and say, hey, listen, look into this for me. I started the process. I was not able to lock in the rate at 3%.
Really?
Yes, you could not lock it in. You couldn't get it locked at the time because the rate really wasn't 3%. The industry wasn't selling it for 3% because there was no money to be made in it. So the lenders are not. It wasn't 3% at the time. Very few people, I'm sure, got to take advantage of that. But I feel that it's going to go back in that direction, and that's the guidance that I've been getting from the mortgage industry.
Yeah, and I mentioned to you, I was, we were in the process of refinancing. We did a 5-year fixed, right, which got an interest rate was in the 5s, which is high. But I said, okay, we went with it. We really wanted the house. So now we were interested in refinancing. And one of the banks that I deal with said, this isn't a good time. And then another lender said, this is a good time. And I understand it's sales, so they wanted to start the process. But then I started, when you get all the information you need to supply. So let's say, you lost your job, or if you're self-employed, they want 403B, 401k, 403B, I'm sorry, show your assets. But a lot of this has dropped dramatically. So now I'm taking a step back and saying, is this a good time to refinance? Not that we need to pull the money out, but because of the interest rate. But now I'm still confused if the interest rate is really 3%, if it's going to go up. What would you say to someone, say like myself, that's interested in refinancing? Is this a good time, or should I hoard the money and not, and just, wait till things turn around?
Well, in refinancing, you're not talking about a cash out refi.
No.
So it's really, you're not hoarding any money. You're just refinancing to reduce the rate that you're paying.
Yes.
Yeah, I would at least start the process with your lender, and also let him or her calculate what your debt to income ratio is. If there was unemployment loss, make sure that that's not going to affect your refinance. There's a lot of questions that you would probably have to ask to your lender on that, but all that could be factors. Do I think it's a great time to start this process? Yes, because this will get done. And the great thing is, just to attach to all this, at one point we were worried if real estate appraisers were actually going to be on the necessary list, and they are. And that's going to be a factor, whether if you're a new home purchase or if you're a refi. That house needs to appraise, and we need an appraisal process done. So that's a great thing right now, that is an essential service according to the state. So we have appraisers still working to achieve those goals.
So someone like myself that's looking to refinance, this is a good time to start the process. If someone's out there that wants to refinance and pull equity out, do you think this is a good time? Do you think they should, wait until things, go back to the new normal?
Yeah, absolutely. So that depends on how much equity you have in your home. If you're gonna have to leave a certain amount of equity in there. If you need to cash out, it could be a good time for you to do that. That's also going to be a matter of preference. Some people, if they're pulling money out, is that a good idea or not a bad idea? That's something that needs to be evaluated on each individual basis if they want to pull money out. And you have to have the equity in the home, so which means it has to appraise to a certain value for you to pull out money. Make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. But depending on how the market, when we go back to the new normal, depending on, the value of the home, that all is dependent on how much money is, how much equity you have within the home.
I see. So you asked me about appraisal end of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's curious to know, like if I was to pull out money, right? But now we don't know what's going to happen in the new normal. If the cost of the house or the value of the home, if it's still going to be worth the same that it's worth now. Do you think that the market itself will stay the same? Do you think it's a good time to pull out money, reinvest it maybe in the market? I mean, what would you do, or what would you say to someone that's, trying to figure out what to do with the equity they have within the home?
Yeah, I can tell you that, just going into this pandemic, I was carrying probably 15 listings, and I managed to get 50% of them actually under contract during this whole process. Multiple homes that I had went above asking price.
Wow.
So I want to say 7 out of 10. This is on a normal basis too for me in this state of the market. 7 out of 10 of my homes either go at asking price or above, depending on the price points. So during this whole process, when this thing all started really taking place and there wasn't restrictions, I've had, like I said, houses go 20, 30, 40. I had one house go $50,000 above asking price.
Wow.
So what that's telling you is going into this market, there's a ton of buyers out there and there's a ton of sellers looking to buy and sell homes. With a lack of inventory, that's something we're not going to be able to change. Okay, especially in where we live. 5 boroughs, Long Island, Nassau, Suffolk County, there's a shortage of inventory. We're not making any more land. Think about this. Brooklyn and Queens, are we making any more land? Something's got to come down for us to put something back up.
Wow.
So, so we're in a unique market living in New York, in this part of New York anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
So now let's a few other questions about. So now when we go back to the new normal, whatever that new normal is, in terms of listing, like how do you see yourself adjusting to the new normal? And during this pandemic, have you seen or have you created any new opportunities? Because during storms like this, there's always other opportunities you can create. Have you created any opportunities, or are you thinking about maybe an online college or a way to get the word out to people that, like myself, that aren't as familiar with the current market?
Yeah, as far as my business is concerned, you're asking
Yeah.
the changes. Yeah. So during this whole process, I'm in the process of opening up a title company. So that was so now it's just become a little bit challenging right now with most everything being started up, but it's like I'm like a second away from opening the doors, and this hit me. So I am still going full force with that. I'm very confident in the way the market's going to turn around. I'm very confident in the way our economy is going to go, and I am 100% sure that business is going to move forward. I really feel all that stuff going forward. As far as my current business right now is running the Masaitis team. I've reached out to just about every one of my clients, my past business partners, anybody I've done business to business stuff with, really just checking in on them to see if there's anything I can do. The craziest thing, sometimes you make those telephone calls and you're answering to a crying person on the other end because they did lose somebody, or they do have family members that were sick. But in that relational stuff, which I highly believe in, that's going to uncover a lot of that stuff. But that's going to create a future as well.
So now when we go back to the new normal, are you going to be able to, do you have to, make changes if somebody is willing to show a home, not through Skype, not through Zoom, and you have to actually physically go into the house? What kind of changes or what kind of adjustments are you going to have to make?
Yeah, so right now I'm kind of ahead of the curve with that as far as my office is concerned. I do lead 155 agents at my office as well, other than my team, which I explained in the beginning. So with that, well, we're going to have guidelines that we're creating. Well, not guidelines. I've already created them in place before we get any direction from the state, because we haven't gotten any direction from the state on any clear and concise guidelines. But I want to make sure that when they say go, if they don't have anything in place, that we have it in place. Specifically, just to touch on things, we're having special masks made, custom-made masks, where there's going to be a shield type thing, comes similar to what you would see that's really unavailable to the public, for hospitals and all that, which they should have that stuff. But I also want to protect people that work for me also. Of course, so the social distancing, maybe have everybody removed from the home, have the buyer come through the house represented by their agent with full protection, maintaining the distance, continue to maintain that 6-foot distance, make sure they're not touching anything in the home, wear rubber gloves, get through the home. This is something that they're going to want for their family, They're gonna abide by these rules. So this way we don't spread anything any further. And that's going to be in the future when we're allowed to do this. Currently we're not, but we have it all in place. This is what our system is going to be. Make sense?
So, okay. So for instance, if I'm looking to purchase a house, it'd be agent to agent, which would have full protective gear on, which would come. And I guess, I don't know if they're going to be live on Skype or Zoom just to show the home. If not, just take photos. So they would be representing the buyer in essence.
Yeah. So currently right now we can't have any person-to-person contact. So when this does open up, that's what we're going to have in place. My thing is to remove the sellers of the home. Take the sellers out of the home so we have less people in the house.
Interesting.
Just have one or two buyers. Let's say maybe it could be one, it could be two, they could be, it depends on the situation that they have. Maybe take them in one at a time. This way we can maintain distance if it's more than, say, two people, and get them through the house. And then, if they want to proceed, they can make an offer on the house.
That's interesting. So, I mean, so years ago when I looked for a home, I was able to do multiple showings in a day. And, now it seems like with the new normal, it might be a little bit difficult to go to 5 or 6 homes in a day if you have to sort of line it all up where, the sellers aren't there and the buyers aren't there. And, you have all this protective gear. It might be a little bit more difficult. Have you thought through that, or do you think it won't be a challenge?
Yeah, no, I think that will be challenging. Availability to show when you're a listing agent is one of the keys to actually getting somebody the best price for a home. So we're going to reduce automatically the availability to show down, right? So just because there's going to be more coordination, but I think with somebody with good experience and able to communicate and be able to schedule property and properly and to deal with the buyer's agent and the listing agent, I think this could be done efficiently. Will it slow up the process a bit? Yes. But as long as we can get it done, it may take a little longer, but as long as we can get it done, I think it'll be fine.
I love the fact that you guys are, you're sort of taking the initiative, thinking ahead, thinking of the future. Because, when the light switch goes on, if that's really what happens, you don't want to be sort of waiting for the state or the government to tell you, what sort of, what you have to put in action. You're already sort of ahead of the curve. That's fantastic that you're, thinking about that. Is there anything else you've been thinking about? Like, I mean, I know, a lot of people now, like I started taking classes online, which I've been doing, but now it's become the norm where I do Zoom, and you are a well of information. I mean, title company, real estate company, 150 employees. I know this was actually a business that you got into later on in life, which is really amazing. I mean, I don't know if we could say you worked for the NYPD, well decorated, retired. I mean, amazing career. And now you went into real estate and you have so much knowledge and information. Do you ever think about, teaching other people? I mean, sharing the information through an online, college or online sort of sources. And do you ever think about that?
Yeah, actually I have. I currently teach the agents at my office. I hold classes. I'd like to hold at least 1 or 2 classes myself at my office every single month on a normal basis. Now we've obviously over the past 6 weeks we've converted to using Zoom like we're using right now to have meetings like that and training like that done virtually for everybody's safety. But that's my personality, is to broadcast my success and help others achieve the success that I have made myself. So, I like that. It also reinstills who I am, and it reinstills how I do business, and it reinforces everything that I do. So I enjoy that.
No, I think it's great. I think it's something you should definitely look into. So for someone out there that's, a few more questions, someone out there that's maybe interested in joining the real estate team, like what type of person does it take, or what do you need to have, some attributes to become, a real estate, someone that works in the real estate market like yourself?
Yeah. So really, I mean, if lead with high end of service, always lead with the relationship as opposed to the transaction. Okay. You don't want to focus on money. You want to focus on the relationship that you're building with somebody. So if you can keep that mindset, you'll understand that you're always making the best decision for your client, not worried about the money in your pocket. To me, that's the key to success, because I'm not worried about just selling somebody a house or just doing something in the industry to put the deal together. I want to make sure that the level of service that I'm giving my client, you come to me to list your house, I'm going to get you the best price possible. I'm going to give you the best advice possible. I'm never going to focus on the money, because if I do a great job for you, you're going to send me all of your other people that wants to sell their home or needs to purchase a home.
So
So
that
I agree with that.
that would be the benefit of obviously coming to you opposed to another real estate company.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I teach that stuff. I'm a firm believer of it. You also have to have motivation. You have to have a good mindset. You have to be able to be there for people. So you can't, you understand this is a business where you're an independent contractor, but if somebody needs you, you need to go ahead and pick up the telephone call, because they're potentially going to make the largest or purchase or the largest sale of their entire life. And you're the person that's going to orchestrate that. So you got to be there for your client.
Wow, that's great. What are the things, I know we've been talking for a while, but what are the things that you could share with some of the people out there, whether it's concerns about the current pandemic, they're selling their home? Is there any advice or anything you can share with them that we might not have touched?
As far as safety?
Not safety, but just in terms of the current market, interest rates. Is there anything that we missed that we could?
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, interest rates. Yeah, I mean, follow interest rates, follow the stock market, follow what our economy is doing is very important. I tell even before this, when I get up in the morning, I want to see what our economy is doing. Where are we going? Where is the world going? Where is the United States going? And that's a really good indicator on what's going to happen in the future. And that's going to apply to your business. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else, Greg, that you would like to touch or discuss before we go?
I think I'm all good. I thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. So if people have questions, concerns, or, I would advise people, if they're looking to sell their home or get advice about the current market, reach out to Greg. Do you mind sharing some of your, whether it's social media or your website or phone number, in case people want to, give you a call?
Yeah, absolutely. My number is 516-241-4109. And, not only just if you want to look to buy or sell a home, but if you're looking to get into the industry, if you want to become a real estate agent and you need advice on that, you can call me on that. I'll give you the best advice that I possibly can. My website is longislandhomesonline.com, and you could actually log into that. You can actually search your own homes. That's my own website that we developed. And you could contact me also at email at greg@masaitisteam.com.
Greg, thank you so much. And I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to continue to do the paperwork about refinancing my home. Probably won't pull any money out. Oh, actually, I had one other question, which I'm sorry to go backwards, but it was something that I didn't cover was, let's say you are refinancing your home or in the process of purchasing a home. And I know you mentioned if you're purchasing a home and you lost your job, I guess it's dependent on the bank. But if you were refinancing and you lose your job for a few months, you want unemployment, and I know you need to have a job, I don't know, for a couple of years before they would approve the loan. Do you think they're going to be a little bit more lenient during this time, and because of the current market? Because, there was over 10 million people that, lost their job. Or will they say, I'm sorry, you're not approved because you didn't have a job for, a continuous amount of time?
Yeah, I would say that's going to be depending on the bank. If you already applied for your refinance with a very conservative bank, like a lot of the big banks, they may have an issue with that. Okay. Some of the other banks and mortgage companies are going to be a little bit more lenient to overlook a lot of those situations. So it all depends on the bank.
Got it. And then the other thing I didn't ask you, I'm sorry to go backwards again, was about, I saw certain banks were, I guess, giving a grace period of 3 months where you didn't have to, if you couldn't pay your mortgage or you weren't able to pay your mortgage. Is that true for all banks in all states, or is that dependent on the bank?
Yeah, so that's a really risky situation depending on the bank that is servicing your loan. So understand that when you take a loan, a lot of times on a new home purchase, some of you may already know this. I'm going to mention it. You started out with Chase, and next thing they sold your loan to somebody else, or you started with one bank and they sold the loan. So it's selling to a different servicer, right? So it doesn't change anything. It changes who the person is servicing your loan. Now, from what I'm understanding is, don't do it. That's what the advice that I'm getting from my lenders, because They are so uncertain. I know they're saying that it's not going to affect your credit. It's not going to affect, even though, yes, they will get tacked onto the back end or however it is they spread out those payments through your 30-year loan. The advice that I'm getting from my lenders is saying it's very risky. So make sure if you do that, make sure you get well documented that this will not affect your credit. Make sure it's on paper. Make sure it's emailed, whatever kind of documentation that you get. Because one of my lenders actually came to me because I was saying, okay, listen, what kind of advice can I give my client? He's saying, listen, Greg, I'll be honest with you, I did it in the banking crisis, and they promised me that it wouldn't affect me. It took me 4 years to get out of that.
Wow.
So, and he's a high level lender that I use. He's does very, very well and gives really great advice, and I trust him on that. But if you are trying to make that decision, I would make sure you get the documentation from your lender.
This is great information. So Greg, thank you. I know we could continue to talk. Listen, guys, reach out to Greg. Any questions, advice? I know when we're done with this conversation, I'm going to have 10 more questions. And I know everybody that's watching this probably has at least 5 to 10 questions. But Greg is a great guy. I would vouch for him. I know him a long time. Reach out to Greg if you're looking to sell your home, refinance your home, just to get some information about the real estate market, or if you're looking to become maybe a real estate agent. Greg, thank you so much. God bless you, my friend.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Always remember, guys, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through words and actions. God bless.